All right, guys, welcome to this week's Essie and Scrappy as Lucas and I begin the countdown to Fargo. Oh, yeah, and that guy, that's Lucas. I mean, I know you don't recognize it with no hair.
I'm convinced I took 7 seconds off of my 40-yard dash, ladies and gentlemen.
From 6.4 to what? No, from 13 to 6. I don't know.
Okay,
I don't even know what a good 40 is.
I got some wheels on me. Don't be too disrespectful now.
Well, it looks good. It looks
Thank
good. You're not nearly as aerodynamic as I am.
Shout out to Fade Mansion, South Plainfield, New Jersey. Shout out to Fade Mansion. Shout out to the boy.
All right. We are coming to you on July 4th. And this is our first show. We're gonna first show of many shows in a row where we talk about Fargo in from a couple of different perspectives. So, but before we get to that, it is July 4th, and Lucas, do you have a fond memory of July 4th? Is there a memory that you remember from your youth?
Man, I mean, July 4th was always one of the more chill holidays in my life. Like, July 4th was one of the ones where, as a family, we more just hung out together. Obviously, did some fireworks, but I mean, so last year I came up to New Jersey for July 4th, and there was a party at one of my aunt's uncle houses, and we wilded out. And we Italians, so we bought the cheap fireworks that should have been probably $400 for the pack, but we got 220 because it fell off a truck, and we wilded out. Like, that was amazing. But I mean, 4th of July has always been a fun one for me and my family. We just always kind of hung out together. So
that's cool. Is there a food that goes with 4th of July for you?
Oh, Zeppeli. Gotta be Zeppeli. Gotta be.
It's gotta be what?
Zeppeli. It's basically, the easiest way to explain it is it's fried dough with ragout in it. You deep fry it, and then you put it in, and then it's basically like a funnel cake, but with cheese inside.
Today, I'm going to teach you how to make zeppole. These are Italian donuts, melt in your mouth, delicious, and the kids go crazy for these, and I'm seriously craving donuts, so let's get started.
Not too much cheese, just enough to keep it all together, and it gets this really beautiful consistency with powdered sugar. Some people put chocolate syrup on it too. So if you ever go to an Italian fair or like Italian street show, you'll see someone making zeppoli. And sometimes it's not even a vendor. They just bring their fryer out of their house and do it. It's best that I'm so serious, and it's amazing. I love it. Zeppoli is my favorite dessert. It mops anything.
All right. Well, you know what? Next time I'm up in your neck of the woods, your mom's gonna have to make some zeppoli because I've never even heard of it.
I haven't had it in a long time, so I've been saying to her, "Yes, we have to make some soon." Yes, I'm serious. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. All right. Awesome. Well, today's show, Lucas has been teasing all of us for a couple of weeks. Are you? Did you get cast in the new Black Panther movie? Like what's going on?
No. So there's been something that I've been teasing it, and I've been waiting for the right chance to say it, and with a little bit more paperwork going through, I think it's time to finally announce for the fall of 2024, I will be an Emmanuel Lion. And I wanted to do it on here. First off, Jason, I appreciate you for letting me kind of, saying it here going to fall 23, but I want to say this. The last 2 years at BPC were incredible. And the people I met there, the opportunity I had, I love. And I need to make this as clear as possible. This has nothing to do with the athletes and coaches at BPC. This has nothing to do with that. My issues are a bit longer standing, and it's things that not a single coach could have fixed. And also part of it is where I live now, Emmanuel is 12 miles away.
Right.
BPC is 3.5 hours. For me, with my mother, especially with everything that happened last summer, being close to my mother is important. Being able to see my mother is important. And going to BPC didn't really allow me to do that currently, especially with things with her health and things of that nature. But I just feel as though, and let me say this, Coach Smith is going in the right direction at Bruton Parker. Bruton Parker's going to develop into one hell of a program that it's always had the chance to. So I want this to in no way, shape, or form be seen as an attack on him. But I just feel like at this moment, Emmanuel's the right place to be. I love Coach Killian and Coach Gardner, Bo, and the guys that I know there already. And I'm just ready to go up to Franklin Springs and get to work.
Yeah, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So I've been thinking about it because I've known for a few days. But if you don't know, Lucas wrestled D1, then NAIA, now Division II. If I can just get Lucas to a D3 school at the end of his career, he will check all the boxes.
What's the Northern Michigan? They D3?
I don't know, but Huntington over in Alabama is a D3 school. So maybe I can reach out to Coach Oliver when you get to be a grad student. You can be a grad student transfer there.
Oh, mud on. I'm going to be in college 9 years. I'm never getting out of college.
It's kind of like prison. Like you think you're getting paroled, and next thing you know, you move.
Now I'm going to be Nietzsche. I'm going to have 8 years in college. Oh, hell.
Well, so in all seriousness, congratulations. I'm actually super excited for your move, obviously, but I'm actually really excited about the move D2 is made in the Southeast. And for those of you that don't know, Lander is one of the top programs in all of Division II, regardless of where you are in the country. And they are in the new Conference of Carolinas, where Emmanuel is, and a lot of Southeast schools. In fact, they're all North Carolina or Georgia or South Carolina or Alabama. Montevallo is coming in as a new school. 14 schools in this Division II conference here in the Southeast. It's going to be a lot of fun from our perspective to kind of watch these programs continue to develop and kind of develop some rivalries and things like that. So,
I mean, and that's part of the point. I mean, you already look at teams like Newberry and Lander that have done a great job at Division II level, and Emmanuel, we're looking to try to knock them off. And it's out of respect. I mean, they're great programs. I know Coach LaHaye. I know the staff at Newberry. They're great people. And it's gonna be a lot of fun to really go get after it and see, how we can mix it up with them. Emmanuel, we have a good class coming in. I love the facilities at Emmanuel, and I really feel like that we're gonna be able to develop as a team, not only myself, but do it for the group as well.
Well, in D2 wrestling, for those of you who haven't had an opportunity, I mean, D2 wrestling is fantastic. It is a very high level of wrestling. I'm looking forward to Lucas getting whichever injury kind of is at the moment. If you had any nagging injuries, get those all healed up, and will we see you wrestle this coming year? Or I don't even know if you're allowed. Like, I don't know how all that works.
I will for sure be wrestling. It'll probably be in opens and things of that nature. Like, I've been talking to Emmanuel's staff and my mother. I want to go to Scuffle. It's an open. I want to go. I want to go really. Let's test myself. Let's see where we stand, But I think it'll mainly be in opens this year. Get healthier. Give me a year to adjust and get my grades more situated. But I mean, look, I may wrestle in the lineup. Me and Killian talk about it. If I'm eligible and I'm the best guy, he's going to want to run me in the lineup. And I said it to him. I said, yeah, let's do that. Like, I'm not, by no means am I the one to say, no, let's wait to wrestle. No, I want to wrestle. So, and I'm going to say this is probably the hungriest I've been in my career. This is probably because I'm chomping at the bit, because the little bit of wrestling I did have this year, it was one match because I screwed my ankle up. And then I really never got back out of first gear this season.
So I'm gonna have to figure out who I could talk to D2 wrestling about, because you are going to be biased. You're not going to be able to give me a perspective.
Never that. Never that. Never that.
All right, so let's move to a very unique story. I actually had an opportunity to talk to the NWCA, National Wrestling Coaches Association, Boys Coach of the Year, Blake Dutton out of McAdory. And I was thinking about it after I had the conversation with him, and he mentioned somewhere, I'm not necessarily the best coach and things along those lines. And but I think that we as athletes and as a coach afterwards, we learn so much from coaches that aren't just about wins and losses.
Yeah.
And what Coach Dutton, the foundation he has set for his team that made a run to a state title, and all of the obstacles and all the things that they've had to overcome, really, I think it's a testament to him. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Agreed. I feel like a lot of teams' mental toughness when you look at teams that have went through things. I mean, a great example is a couple of years ago, Mount Pisgah with Coach Murray.
Yeah.
That's a great example. It is just that ability that I feel like when you impose a certain type of mentality on kids, when something does go wrong, it puts them in a far better position to make it happen. So, I mean, look, Coach Dutton is a hell of a dude, and he led a fantastic program. And when rubber met the road and they needed to step up, that team did that. So it's absolutely a testament to him for sure.
All right. So without any further ado, let's go to my conversation with Coach Dutton. It's a little bit longer than we normally put into this segment, but it was a great conversation. And then we got a couple things we're going to talk about after we're finished. All right. All right. I'm here with Coach Blake Dutton. Coach Dutton, how are things in McAdory, Alabama today?
They're great. It's hot outside, but and, you know, it pretty much is everywhere in the Southeast right now, at least. But it's great. Having a good summer so far.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, it's a little warm, a little further east, and like you said, it's been warm everywhere. But you know what? I think it was a couple weeks ago, the NCWA announced their Coaches of the Year. And congratulations. I don't want to bury the lead. Congratulations on winning that award.
Thank you.
Did you know that you were nominated? How did that process kind of work?
Well, so Sean Welson that said Thompson is our rep for the NWCA here in Alabama. Mm-hmm. And he called me the last day of school. So it was towards the end of May, and told me that I won it. And normally they tell you, you know, if you won it for the state and everything before then. Mm-hmm. Like I won it for Alabama in 2019 when we won a state championship then. And I don't know if you know Trip Otis that's at Jasper.
I do. Yeah.
I was calling him, kidding with him earlier on, like, hey man, if they called you to tell you that you won, you know, for Alabama and everything. He's like, no one's called me yet. I don't think they've told anybody who's won it for Alabama. And then I get the call from Sean, and he's like, hey man, you won it from Alabama. Oh, and by the way, you won our set, you know, you won it for Region 3. Oh, and you're the national, you know, you won it nationally. And I was like, no, you're kidding with me. And you know, and when it finally kind of sank in, like I teared up a little bit. I mean, it was a big deal. Like, you know, I'm really honored to win that award, but he told me to kind of keep it quiet for a little while because they wanted the NWCA to publish it or whatever before.
Yeah.
So, but it's a tremendous honor, and you know that's kind of how I found out about it and everything.
That's hilarious. I you know, because Sean is one that might pull your leg a little bit. Not, you know, he kind of kids around every now and again, but certainly not in this respect. You know, probably very serious. You know, winning that you won the region or the state award, and then the region award. Winning the region award is a big deal.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Then I mean, you had to be kind of a little bit floored by winning it nationally. I mean, that's superb. I mean, that's just unbelievably the level of competition, the coaches that are considered for the award is just unbelievably good.
Absolutely. There's a million people that deserve that award more than I do. I mean, we had an amazing season this year. I mean, I'm just honored that, you know, that many people voted for me to win it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I wanted to read what actually they wrote. They said, despite facing significant setbacks, including a series of injuries, so on and so forth, your McAdory Yellow Jackets ended up claiming a state title this past year, and you had a lot of different things going on during the course of the year, and we're going to get to that in a second. But okay. I want to talk about first how special it was for your kids to win the state title? Because we haven't actually had the conversation since they've won.
Yes, sir. Well, so I had a really good group of seniors this year. I had 8 seniors total.
Yeah.
6 of them are actually, signed scholarships to wrestle in college. 5 of them are going locally to Montevallo. And then Hudson Waldrop is going to Campbell. He's actually already up there right now this summer. So,
right.
But I've never had that many kids in 1 year sign a wrestling scholarship. I think the most I've ever had out of one senior group was 2 or 3. These kids, all of them, the reason why they were so successful is they pretty much started since their freshman year on varsity, and they've gotten a lot of mat time, and they're like a family,
Yeah.
they're like my extended family. And it's sometimes you have a wrestling team and you got kids that don't get along, but they kind of just get through the season. Like all of these kids, that's their buddies, their family. They all get along with one another really well. And as a coach, like it makes my job easier when they all have the same goal and they're willing to work that hard.
Absolutely. Right. So, and given some of your own, challenges this year.
Yes, sir.
How important was it that they were as cohesive of a group as that they were? Because it would have been really hard. And we're going to kind of talk about, because I want to get your kind of reflection upon, what had happened and kind of, the realization. But before we get to that group, you knew kind of what you had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they weren't going to be derailed, I guess, from trying to make a run for a state title.
Like when I got sick and I missed sectionals, I couldn't do it without my assistant coach, Robert Wilkerson. He's actually a McAdory guy. Like we went to high school together. He kind of helped me keep them together in that sense. And they all had a goal that, they were all going to qualify for state and do everything that they did do. So, if I know that I've had other teams in the past, and I don't think that they would have, without me being there, they wouldn't have been able to, I guess, keep it together, I guess you could say.
Well, maintain the focus, right? Because they stayed on the eye on the ball, right?
They're like very mature group of kids. It's funny, like with everything that happened, I know you wanted to talk about it in a minute, but they were able to kind of pull through that. I missed the whole week of practice for sectionals, and then I was able to, be there for state. But it's interesting that, I could honestly, with some of the kids that were seniors this year, like I could go get practice started and I could let them run it. They're so good at that, and they know what their role is on the team. Like, you say, oh, I've got 1 or 2 kids as team captains. I had really about 6 or 7 kids on that team that kind of, I could just turn it over to them and they're going to make sure everything gets done,
Yeah. Well, so when did you realize that you had a problem? Like, because and for everybody who doesn't know, like your right foot was amputated, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what happened? I'll give you a little bit of background. So for the last couple of years, for many years, I was known as the coach that was always wearing a boot on my foot. Like other kids and other teams were like, "Oh, I remember you. You're the guy. You're the coach that has a boot on their foot." So back in 2020, like right after during COVID, I made a decision. I'd had some problems. Like years ago, I had a bad motorcycle wreck, and then I had a blood clot, and then I had an injury to my left foot where I decided, instead of going through having a halo put on my leg and being where I really didn't know if the pain would ever go away, I went ahead and decided to have my left leg amputated. So I was fine. Like I could even, wrestle and be more active after I had that done. Well, during the season this year, I guess it was it was the second half of the season. It all happened kind of quickly. I started getting like my arch in my right foot just I was in a lot of pain. And so one morning I woke up, we were hosting our JV tournament that we do the weekend before sectionals.
Right.
And I'd been in pain for a while. And my right foot was about 2 or 3 times the size of it, like its normal size, and really red and everything. And so, I tried to get as much done. I got them to kind of handle the tournament, and then later on that day, I went to the hospital, went to the ER, and that's when they made the decision that I had sepsis, and they were going to have to amputate my right leg. So,
did you realize that I mean, because you had been in pain, did you realize it was that bad? Or
well, I didn't. I think that you know how wrestling season is. You kind of just push through it and you keep going, and I think that I probably could have avoided it maybe if I would have stayed off of it a little bit, but I didn't think it was that bad. Like there wasn't a wound there or anything, and it's kind of a similar situation if you heard the story about the Peyton. What's the kid's name from Nebraska? Right after the national this year.
Peyton Robb, yeah.
So it's similar situation to what happened with him, except with him, they didn't end up amputating his leg or anything, but it was a similar situation to that. So I was in the hospital through sectionals. The day after sectionals, like I think half the guys on the wrestling team came and visited me. And
I saw that picture on Facebook. Yeah.
And I wasn't gonna let that, like if they were gonna let me out of the hospital, like I was gonna be there. It didn't matter if I had to crawl in there, I was gonna be there for those guys. But really, I made it through the whole season. Us as a team, we had a number of injuries. I don't think we ever wrestled a duel this year with every kid healthy, but then at the end, that happens to me, and that's just another obstacle. But those kids got through it. It's one of those things. It's like, I don't want to say that I really got them ready to be able to do that without me, but they did a really good job at it. And like, I kind of kidded with him. I told him, I was like, y'all might wrestle a little bit better without me here, Right. As long as they win, that's all that matters, I guess. But
well, so I guess the thing is, I'm really interested in the reaction of the kids, when and like when they kind of, they kind of understood it, and kind of what was happening and everything else, and kind of their taking over and your assistant coach taking over and the leadership that they showed. And then I don't know if they expressed it to you, but I'm really interested in, you showing up at the state tournament.
Yes, sir.
Were they like, Coach, what are you doing? Are you crazy?
Yeah, some of them were like that, but like they know that I'm hard headed, and I'd been texting with them like the whole time, like, and watching it on, track wrestling and seeing how they did at sectionals and everything. And then like when I went to state, they were like, you probably should still be at home resting or whatever. But I told them I wasn't going to do that, even if it killed me, But those, I can honestly say, like, I've been doing this for a long time, but it's going to be hard to have another group as special as this group that I just had, this group of seniors.
Yeah.
And I've got really, we're going to definitely, those kids are going to be hard to replace this year. We're going to have a good team, but we're definitely going to be younger. And, some of those juniors like Christian Griggs and Eric Lasers that were both, Christian was a state champion and Eric state placer. They've kind of already stepped up into leadership roles for this next season. So I'm really grateful to have them. But other than that, we're going to be very young.
Well, I think it's a testament that to kind of the foundation that you set with them. And I know you said before, it's not all you, and of course that's the case, but you had a big role in the fact that how they responded to the adversity that was in front of them. So a tip of the cap, certainly very well deserved Coach of the Year for the NCWA. It's a fantastic honor. And I just want to extend our congratulations.
Thank you. You know, I was also I kidded a little bit because my assistant staff, they won for Alabama the assistant staff award, and just kind of messing with them. So Robert, my assistant coach, he's our defensive coordinator on our football team, and funny little I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago when Selma started a wrestling program for a little while.
Yeah,
he was actually the head coach at Selma.
Oh,
and
really?
So, yeah, there were a couple of us that kind of helped him start that program. So he had been around wrestling before. So he really helped me out. Well, when he won that award, he was like, I think the only reason why I won this award is because they saw me pushing your fat butt around in a wheelchair and they felt sorry for me. So.
and you deserve it, right?
Okay, he definitely does. Because I don't know what I would do without him,
All right. So that was my conversation with Coach Dutton. Congratulations to McAdory and on winning the title, Coach Dutton on winning the NWCA Coaches Award. Really an interesting, fantastic story as far as their perseverance and ability to kind of, battle through some challenges this past year.
Real life stuff came knocking. You know what I mean? Like some real adult life. Yeah. Real life stuff came knocking and they had to figure it out, and they did.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. So we're going to transition to our final segment. And this is an interesting one for me because, I'm a kind of a data nerd and that sort of thing. I like lots of numbers. From the outside, and I know you're that way too. You like lots of things along those lines.
Yeah.
From the outside, though, what is it about knowing the history of, like, say, the state of Georgia in wrestling, or knowing the history of this or that? Why is that important? I mean, if you're going to Fargo, why would you care?
I feel like it provides a lot of great context on the struggles that certain teams go through, and that there are certain teams that, have ascended in the past couple of years. I feel like it's a really cool thing to note of. As for the athletes, if your team has never won a state title and you are a part of the crew that gets them over the hump, I feel like that it's a really cool moment to be a part of in history, like a moment in time. So listen, at the end of the day, let's all remember something. When the sun decides to eat the earth, all of this will be gone, but what won't be gone is what has happened and what did happen. So the idea of knowing what happened and the history and in turn the trends and stats of it, I really feel like, contextually speaking, in a historical circumstance, is super important.
Yeah, I don't know that I could have said that any better. I like that. So I'm a big history person. You're a big history person. And one of the things that was born out of this idea of this series, which I called "We Own the Dome," which of in Fargo. If you have never been to Fargo, it's the Fargo Dome. It is quite a spectacle. I think of it like a circus. You got a big, center stage mat, and you've got a bunch of other mats around it, and there is a ton going on. And man, when the lights go down and it is the finals and the two individuals up onto the final stage, it's a pretty special thing for high school level wrestling. I don't know that we get that level of kind of, hoopla, or whatever as it relates to any other event. So it's pretty cool.
The only single thing I can even kind of compare to it is Super 32 when you have the finals and the kids are surrounding the mat. Yeah. That's the only, like, when I really think about it, like, if you look at any other tournament, like, the setup may be similar, like Flow Nationals for a while did a really similar tournament format, but it just wasn't the same. I just feel like Super 32 and Fargo are the two arguably most important tournaments of the year at the high school level, and the two that you get the most grandiose atmosphere from.
So before we jump into the 16U girls and freestyle and kind of a little bit of history, and I say a little bit of history because we didn't go back all the way through. I went back to the last 6 years since the weight class has changed and kind of looked at at the we own Fargo or we own the Dome type of idea from a certain time frame, not for the entire thing. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me is that when you walked in, when I walked in as a coach a long time ago, or when you walked in as an athlete, or when you walk into the state tournament here in Macon, right, in Georgia or in Alabama or Florida, do you have a preconceived notion of who are the top teams, who are the top whatever?
So I feel like you can't even compare the two, because when you walk into the state tournament, yes, it may be a big arena. It's the state championship. You know, if you're in Florida, Dade, Gibson, Jensen Beach, Somerset, Fleming, like you know walking in. But when you get to the arena, it tapers you off. Because as children, when you're told about the state tournament, like when I got told about Macon, I thought Macon was another 8,000 seats bigger. But then when I walked into it, I was like, okay, it's a big arena. Okay. But when you walk into Fargo, all of the tales of glory are true. It is that. No, and I can only explain this in one way. I remember talking to Justin Ruffin just before my first Fargo. If you guys don't know Justin Ruffin, killer out of Georgia, 4-timer, goes to SIUE, NCAA qualifier, Weissover, I do believe. Love that dude. That's the family to me, right? When we were talking, he's like, bro, it's just as big as you think and bigger. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you'll see it. And bro, it's when you walk down the black market going toward that side door, like it starts there. And then you walk in and you see the 28, whatever it is, mats, including the one that's always on the stage, a gaggle of people all around the venue. I mean, look, I was a kid that had been, so the only time I went to Fargo was my freshman year. So, like, I must have been 10 years at that point, 10, 12 years. And I had been in big arenas. Nothing compared to the Dome. Well, nothing compared to Fargo.
And a who's who watching all the action. I mean, you're looking to your right and you see NCAA champion here. You see this person there. I mean, it's a big deal.
And the other thing is, when you go in, you're wrestling against guys who are NCAA champions. You know that. Like, I wrestled Carson Manville, John Martin Best, Lucas Ravano. Like, I had so many guys who were hitters that to wrestle these guys, you knew going in, from the word go, you've got to be ready to answer the bell. So it's a cool experience. And I mean, the other thing is, for me, Fargo's fun because Fargo is what started Fat and Scrappy brand. And a lot of people don't know that. It's Fargo where it all began. I had my worst weight cut ever at Fargo. Shout out to Terry Allison and Flavor Flav, Coach McFlavin, shout out to them. Make a long story short, dropped 17.4 pounds in about 9 hours, made weight, wrestled, dropped 11.5 the next morning, and didn't even place. That's the best part. Didn't even place. Lost to Carson Manville in the quarters of Greco and lost to John Martin Best in the freaking blood round. But that was the tournament where I said, okay, wait a second. I just cut all this weight and I didn't even place. Why the hell am I cutting weight? This doesn't make sense. And then that's what kind of, and a medical mishap. Long story short, let's just say, thank God I didn't lose my liver, ladies and gentlemen. But beyond that, after that, that was the first year where then I went to high school. I wrestled Dayton Fix because I bumped up to 132 at the knockout. And I just didn't care anymore about the weight. So a lot of people don't know that for me, Fargo's special because that was kind of where the whole fat and scrappy mindset was born.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I get it. So,
we're on a weird tangent there. My bad, ladies and gentlemen. We're on a complete tangent.
No, you have your perspective on kind of the things that you remember. Like I remember certain things from my time as well, and time and I don't know. It's just one of those situations where you kind of like, there's certain instances, certain events that have kind of a really powerful impression upon you, and you have a tendency to remember those and go back to those. So, as you were going through it, I was thinking about something, and that is, so Jason Bryant, who develops this, he has developed the Fargo Almanac, and that's where we got most of this information from. He tweeted out the other day that I think it was 1997, 154 pounds.
5 NCAA champs.
Yeah, 4 or 5 NCAA champs that ended up placing. There were guys that were super, super good who didn't make top 8.
Yeah,
I mean,
Donnie
just crazy
in that bracket.
Yeah, so you saw the same tweet.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember. Harper was in that bracket. I can't remember all of them for the life of me, but
Heskett won. Joe Heskett won.
Yeah. Yo, giving you work. Put that tweet in here. Let the fans see if they don't know what we're talking about.
All right, so I want to make sure that also, if you're really interested in any of those stats and everything else, I mean, we're talking about 200 pages of flipping through. Now, what happens when I start flipping through 200 pages, I start trying to look for patterns. And that's where we got to, we own Fargo, or we own this weight class. Lucas, in the state of Georgia, do you think of a particular school as being dominant in the lightweights or in the heavyweights, or is that not really a thing?
Oh, no, absolutely. Well, I'm also a psychopath. But, there are certain schools where when you hit 106 to 126, they're going to be real, real tough. Right. I mean, for me, over the past couple of years, it's been Buford for me. I think of guys like Ebold, Gorman, Clark, Maddox, and that list is going to continue to grow. If I didn't say Gorman, then Gorman, like Buford to me in the lightweights, also schools like Rockmart, guys like Chambers, TK Davis, Hamden, obviously, but they're tough everywhere, so that doesn't really count. Well,
and we see the same thing in Fargo, right? I mean, certain weight classes, and I've got a really interesting stat when we get to men's Greco, but we're going to focus on 16U women's freestyle, and the dominant state is
California. It's just California. Let's be real with ourselves here. So it's nutty. I'm not gonna go into this to the first stat, the one that jumps off the page to me, but California has more All-Americans than the second and third place state combined. It's like they lap the field. It's California. Like, let's be honest. They have 77 to Illinois' 40 and Washington's 36. By the way, state of Washington, would not have guessed that. That was a weird one.
You know what? You're gonna see the state of Washington in several of these over the next few days, and I'm going, how good is the state of Washington?
Shout out to the Pac Northwest. Okay, we see.
But your stat right there is so telling. They have more All-Americans over the last 5 years or 6 years, 5 Fargos, because we missed to 2020, right?
Yeah.
So they have more All-Americans than number 2 and number 3 combined.
That's nutty.
So when you were looking down the list of teams, California was 1, Illinois was 2. You said Washington was a surprise at 3. Is there a team in that top 10 that you expected, or a state you expected to see that you didn't see?
Not really that I didn't expect to see. I will say I expected Texas to be higher with the fact that they were so early on in the development of girls wrestling. I expect them to maybe be close to that 4-5 range. New Jersey as well, I thought would have been on there because I know New Jersey has a good number of girl wrestlers, especially being here today and talking to some of the baseball families that also wrestle in South Plainfield. I just maybe expected those two, but honestly, the list mainly breaks out just about the way I thought it would if I had to guess going in.
So you don't have the numbers in front of you, but do you know how many 16U All-Americans New Jersey has had in the last 5 years? So number 10 is 17, and you know it's below that.
13.
7.
Really? Now that's surprising. I would have thought they had more than that. Okay.
I know. These are the types of things that I'm really surprised about, right? So they actually fall below Georgia. They're below Florida, but they're above Tennessee. Yeah.
Speaking of Southeast, ladies and gentlemen, the Southeast 7 is going to happen next week. The reason why I pushed it back is because once I saw that he was also keeping track of historical Fargo All-Americans, I wanted to also have that play a part. So it's coming. There's a reason I pushed it back. I promise. It's a method of madness. Sorry, continue. Once you said Georgia, I was like, oh, I never even mentioned the Southeast 7. Yeah.
That's true. All right. So in 16U girls, there are, for those of you that don't know, we start at 94 pounds. We go all the way up to 200 pounds. And in terms of All-Americans, California has, I think is it 14 weights? It might be 14 weights. Is it 14 or 15 weights? California has the most All-Americans in 8 of those weights. So if you're interested in a little bit more detail on the website, it breaks it down so you can see who owns particular weights. But 94, 100, both California, and not even close really to everyone else. Is there a reason why we think that California is, I mean, because they're not just dominant there, they're dominant throughout. Is it numbers?
I think a good part of it is numbers and a higher population. I think the other part of it is, so this is something that, speaking to Mario DiBendetto of Swamp Monsters, I didn't know this until he kind of told me it, that where a lot of these schools are centered that girls wrestling is big in is in the heart of some of the biggest and best softball communities in the state. And what happens is you get girls that play softball up until middle school. The wrestling team takes them for the fall and spring after softball season. And what happens is they don't make the high school team, or they do when they're not as prolific in softball at the high school level, and they make the jump to wrestling. So that's where the numbers come from. I didn't know that until he kind of broke it down to me, which is real fascinating, that kind of dichotomy of the way that wrestling grows. I mean, you see it in certain states where it's through football. Other states, it's through like just different means. So that's fascinating to hear, actually.
Yeah. All right. So at 100 pounds, California leads the way, but a tip of the cap to Florida, who has 3 All-Americans in the last, 5 years? 5 Fargos, 6 years. And I'm going to totally keep saying that because whatever, because we missed 2020. So it just totally messes me up. Yeah. And Mary Manis was a runner-up a year ago for Team Florida. Let's jump to 106, where we make the transition to another state, and that is the state of Illinois. Why is Illinois, and you're going to hear Illinois a lot, why is Illinois a good Fargo team, regardless of the group?
Because they push the summer wrestling a lot more. That's just as simple as it is. They push it. Like, Illinois, California, I'll throw Minnesota in there. I know, and PA to an extent, but most of PA just cares about PIAA states. My thing is those 3 states I mentioned do a really good job of saying, we got to win Fargo. We got to win duels. We got to, they push it so heavily that their kids are ingrained in it. Go look at some Illinois brackets from Youth Freestyle and Greco State this past year. You'll see 22-man brackets at 12U. Think about that. 20-something kids in one weight class at Illinois Freestyle and Greco State. That is nuts.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, it's certainly a focus. Now, is the focus is so we talked about the size of the state. Is it also, I mean, the coaches and the coaches' backgrounds in those areas as well, and whether it has staying power? I mean,
look, my thing is you ain't got to know a lot about wrestling to know what you don't know.
Okay.
If you don't know freestyle,
that might be true in lots of things.
No, what I'm saying is, if you don't know freestyle, send your boys and girls to someone who does. Like, I'm sorry, like, See, this is where we get into a different conversation about coaches as a whole. But I think as a whole, coaches need to not focus on measuring and focus on, okay, hey, freestyle and Greco is super important to the development of these wrestlers. I don't know it that well. Hey, go here, this club, this guy, he knows what he's doing. Go wrestle with him. And then as a coach, you go and you learn.
Yeah.
That's what you should do to develop guys and girls. And again, I'm not shooting anybody specifically.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it actually happens lots of places. So, I mean,
that's what I'm saying. That it happens a lot more than I think people might realize.
All right. So from 112, 117, and 122, not surprisingly, California is at the top. Of those three weight classes, they've had 25 All-Americans in those three weights.
17 pounds, California will be guaranteed a national champ. In the red, Katie Gomez out of Van Nuys, California. Be a sophomore at Birmingham High School. Her teammate, ranked number 4, Jennifer Soto out of Red Bluff, California. She'll be a sophomore at Orland High School and was this year's California state champ at this weight. Passive offer.
Way ahead of everyone else. Way ahead.
Sam.
Way ahead.
It's nuts.
It is. It's kind of crazy. So the question is, we shift to 127 away from this dominance of California, and we get a state that's a little, I mean, we haven't even had a conversation about them yet. They just kind of pop up, and that is the state of New York.
Yeah, New York.
How does New York not have very many in any of the weights up to 127, and then we see them pop out here?
New York's real interesting because what a lot of people don't say about New York is that wrestling doesn't exist on the island. And this is what I mean by that. Other than very real specific high schools in Manhattan, Staten Island, Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Long Island, wrestling isn't really a thing. It's not that big. So where you get your pockets of wrestling is Rochester, Ithaca, Syracuse, Buffalo, certain areas, Poughkeepsie, certain areas. The thing is, wrestling's not got to the island yet in that big of a way. So what I feel like happens is it's a lot of these smaller communities that are great at wrestling where you may not have the same numbers. A lot of people don't understand New York doesn't have as high of numbers as you might expect. Really does.
They don't.
Men's or women's, by the way. Like it's not as big, and it's because it hasn't appealed to the island as much.
Well, and I think that what we see in terms of the All-Americans. So Sophia Macaluso was a champion in 2019 at 122, was an All-American at 122 in 2018. Mia Macaluso was a champion at 127 in 2018 and was an All-American at 127 in 2017. Certain individuals, but not the depth. Like you see with California. You see 9 different girls winning or All-American.
That's the big thing. And it basically, and it's like I said, it's like you just said, you get families, you get small communities where wrestling is huge. Like there are certain communities in New York that I would argue wrestling is bigger than in certain areas of Pennsylvania. Like some of these really small New York schools that they may not even be that good. There's a couple schools in section 5 and 6 specifically that come to mind for me where their football team, they go 3-8. They don't make the playoffs. Their baseball team is their basketball team's decent, but the wrestling team, that's where we pop out. And
we see that down here in the Southeast too.
And they shut but they shut the town down for duels. Don't think about trying to get a damn haircut if the town rivals it down for a duel meet. Don't even think about it. You're not getting it. Don't go to a bar. Jesus, you're better like going to get water from the tap of the sink. You're just not getting a beverage. It's that type of a thing where I feel like New York hasn't, and it's going to sound odd, New York hasn't grown yet. It's really been the same communities for the past 10, 15 years. It's been the same communities. If it ever gets to the island, I feel like we'll have a different discussion. But until that point, New York is going to be in that really weird spot where it's like brothers and sisters, small communities.
All right.
Yeah.
So give me an opposite example of a state where you think that it's really spread out, and because California, I mean, it's probably pockets as well. I mean, the sheer number of people in the state of California is huge. So
in California, a lot of the wrestling's in that north central, like Fresno, Sacramento
Right.
area. But then, of course, you do have, like you said, pockets in northern LA, San Diego, the military towns. But for me, Florida's the best example of that. You go from Jacksonville to Miami, and in every major area, you could name at least Jackson, Clay, Fleming. You go to Gibson, then you hit Orlando. You got Osceola. You go further south. Like you can name teams in every area of the state where wrestling is big. In
Yeah.
Georgia, you can't do that. And I love Georgia. There are certain pockets in Georgia where it's like
it's empty. Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's empty.
All right. So let's jump to 132. And 132, there is no state that owns Fargo because there are 4 states: California, Illinois. Ooh, I'm going to look at the flag and I'm not going to know what it is. Missouri. Thank you. And Pennsylvania. Yeah. Who are all have 4 All-Americans. You know, what's interesting there is each have had their individuals as well that have excelled for each of those states.
Yep.
Is it I guess the thing, my question in this situation is, I would expect more weight classes to have, you know, 4 or 5,
Yeah.
like we see at 132.
Like ties.
Yeah. We only have ties in a couple of weight classes. We don't have ties in very many weight classes at all. In fact, California is like 9, and then the next closest is 3. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
I mean that's just the way it broke out. I would have expected that too. I would have expected the races to be a little bit tighter for sure.
Yeah. Well, California owns 138 as well. And then we jump to 144, and we come back around to Illinois. We already talked about Team Illinois, and really has a fantastic group of girls at 144 pounds over the last 5-6 years. And then we go to 152. And 152, we see a new state.
Colorado.
What is it about Colorado? And is that a surprise like Washington?
So Colorado, I knew was good at women's wrestling. I knew that they had good numbers. I know that they were one of the first states to be able to fill an entire state tournament, each bracket in the girls division, where there were no buys. I know that they were able to. They were one of the first ones to do that. So I'm not particularly surprised. I actually might have thought maybe a little bit more of a showing on this list.
All right.
But to see them at 152, it makes sense to me. And I mean, you have a girl in Allison Evans who a number of them by herself.
Right. I mean, and that's where this could get pushed way ahead. I mean, when we get to Georgia, I mean, Sean Haig might be able to push the number for Georgia.
Yeah.
If we were to go way back in time.
Yeah, 8 of them things like hell.
All right. So moving up from 152, we get another new state, which do you like the parity where there's different states who dominate different weight classes?
I love it. I think it's fascinating. I think it's incredible for the girls to know, hey, you know, this is where we're aiming.
Yeah. So Oregon, Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
Is Pacific Northwest for 16U girls just way better than everywhere else in the United States?
Seems like it. I mean, if you look at California, I would love to see the schools these California girls come from.
It's probably north, right?
A lot of them are more north.
Yeah. So at 164 pounds, Oregon is the state that has the most All-Americans since 2017. And then we go back to a familiar face in the state of California at 180 pounds. And we finish out with a state that has popped up in lots of them, but never is all the way at the top. until we get to 200. And at 200 pounds, they got double the number of All-Americans than California has or Florida has. And that's the state of Missouri. Well, the show me state. What is it about Missouri that this kind of pushes them up? You know what I mean?
I honestly don't particularly know. I wonder if it's me. I would love to see the breakdown of the numbers of girls in the heavier weight classes of what states have more. I wouldn't be surprised if Missouri's high up in that list, just due to the population, just the way like population in Missouri, the average weight for both males and women's is on the higher side of the country. So I'm because of the farm life, you're working out basically your whole life, you're doing things physically your whole life. So I'm not surprised by them being better higher up in the weight classes. Yeah. I mean, hell, like the Elms out of Missouri. I mean, like when you look at Missouri wrestling, a lot of the guys that come out of Missouri that are studs are, 170 and above, 160 and above.
Well, we're going to see that actually when we get to Junior Greco. I know I've done that one, and we're kind of working on a few others. But yeah, it's interesting because certain states, they really excel, and I just wonder. I wonder if so Florida now has Steve Mocco down there. I wonder if the Florida heavyweights are going to see this bump as a result.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
I absolutely think that, yes, that should happen. Theory would dictate.
So a couple of lasting things before we leave We Own Fargo series for 16U girls that stand out to me. Number one, Washington is number 3 overall, but they're not number 1 in any way. They might tie for 1, but they're not number 1 in any single weight class or in any single weight class. Texas, like you said, might be the biggest surprise that doesn't, that they're, let's see, where do they come in at as far as ranking goes? 7th. Yeah. So, they're, and they only have the most in 4 of those weights. Is there a state that besides Texas that kind of surprised you?
Not particularly. The rest of that top 10 basically broke out in a similar fashion. Like I said, New Jersey, maybe Michigan. I thought maybe would have had a few more, but
Iowa or Ohio.
The numbers, like Iowa does have, and don't misunderstand me now, ladies and gentlemen. Iowa and Ohio have a lot of great girl wrestlers, but I'm saying over the past half decade, I wonder if that development has started later in that process.
All right. So I guess our last question as it relates to this before we sign off for this week, and just to let everybody know that we will be doing it for each of the different groups and trying to drop one a day. They'll probably be a lot shorter than our normal kind of weekly things. I hope so. What is the takeaway as you walk in for 16U girls this year? I know this is historic, but it does inform. What's the takeaway? What is the thing that you're going to be paying attention to the 16U girls?
California got a bullseye on their back.
or maybe they're the ones who are taking out everybody else.
I'm so serious. Like, for me, I look at that and I'm like, okay, if I wrestle someone from California, gotta go get it. I gotta go get it. Like, because this is who's been dominant. That's the way I look